Hey guys, welcome to the Go-to-game show. This is episode 23. This is where Jack and I get to catch up every week now that we no longer work in the same office due to everything. But yeah, we usually catch up and have a chat about everything that's going on in gaming news, catch up on what we've each been up to, and we're usually joined every week by a mate. But this week it's somebody we've never spoken to in person, but it's someone who is awesome to have on the show this week because of some of the stuff that's gone down in the news. So welcome to the show, Consequence of Dread.
Conquest of Dread.
Conquest
Yeah.
of Dread. See, this is
Oh
how
my
badly we
God.
know him.
Yeah. You can just call me Tim though. I mean, the
Yeah.
Conquest of Dread is just my channel name or whatever. But yeah, hey, it's great to be here, and a little hurt that you said I'm not a mate because I feel
I
like this
know.
last 5 minutes we've shared a
Oh
beautiful
yeah.
moment together.
Well, look. You're not somebody
You
who
did that
we've
last
done
week
work
too to
with
Rowie.
Yeah.
for years. Oh no, but Rowie doesn't count.
Fair. Very fair.
But yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So, what have we been up to this week, Jack?
Woo. More work. Working. More GTA.
Yeah.
Which is just my life still. I'm actually still enjoying it, which is really crazy. Well, RuneScape used to be my thing, and now it's just GTA. It's just GTA every day. But
Yeah.
I actually played Cyberpunk today for a little bit this
Yep.
afternoon between finishing work and then before the kids got home. So I don't know. I saw everyone on Twitter today like, oh, I spent 4 hours on my character model. Bro, I literally did it in like 6 minutes.
Oh,
And just
dude,
went,
no,
get me in the game.
as soon as I get on the game, bro, I will literally spend hours working on that character model. But I'm the same when it comes to like WWE games and
Yeah,
Fallout.
fair.
Fallout, I spend ages on that coming up with my first character, you know.
I remember back in the
Really?
day, the WWE games were all about you'd have like a sleepover with all your mates, and
Yeah.
you'd stay up till like 4 a.m. creating each other as wrestlers, and then you'd be too
And then
tired, you just go to sleep, and you never
but-
actually wrestled.
Yeah, but in the old WWE games, it used to be, like, especially like SmackDown back in the day, it was you'd create your character and then you'd spend hours then creating your entrance and all
Oh
that.
yeah,
Sort of stuff
yeah,
as well.
choosing your moves and everything like that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I can honestly remember having days where like me and my mates would literally sit there and that's all we did all day.
That's mad. That's
Yeah,
real
that's
cool.
good.
But yeah, that's about it for me. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
So for me, work, we've got some cool stuff we're working on at the moment.
Oh yeah.
That we'll be able to talk about very soon, hopefully. So a lot of my time's been working on that over the last couple of days. But I finished the arcade machine that I was talking about last week.
Hell yeah. I saw you doing that on Twitter or wherever you were putting up pictures.
Yeah. So funny story though. So you know how
Mm.
I said I was just going to be modding it so that it runs on Raspberry Pi rather than just coming with the stock games that it came out of the box with.
Yeah.
So turns out one of the parts I ordered was the controller for the monitor so that it can then run on HDMI.
Yeah.
Turns out that part I ordered was the incorrect part.
Oh, okay.
But
Was it expensive?
it was only like $30.
Oh, okay. But still. Yeah.
But if I was to order a new one, because you got to order them off Alibaba and get them in from China, so
Ah.
it takes anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks to get here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to do this now. I had an old Dell monitor, you know, the old square ones.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wonder. So everything that used to be on that machine, so the screen is a different screen. I replaced the screen, the motherboard and all that sort of thing, gone. Did all that, and then I decided, I've got a couple of arcade sticks that are actually better, like they're all Sunwire sticks and Sunwire buttons. I might as
Yeah.
well just replace all the controllers as well. So basically, the only thing that's left of the original arcade machine is just the body. Everything
That's
else,
mad.
I've completely rebuilt everything from the ground up, and I've got like thousands of games on there now. At the moment, if you ever look at, I don't know if you can see it very clear, but it's got NBA
Not
Jam
really.
playing on it right now.
Nice.
Oh yeah. That's sick.
Yeah.
Because you can
We've
just
got it,
just
set up
upload
like that at
emulators,
our,
right?
what's it?
What was
I
that,
gonna
bro?
say, You can just upload emulators, right? Is that all you've done?
It's all got emulators all built into
Yeah, right.
the
Yep.
Raspberry Pi. So the hardest part's just sourcing the games. But I
Yeah.
actually found one place where I downloaded like one file and it had everything on it. So
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah, we got an arcade set up at the tattoo shop that I work in.
Yeah.
The front end, it's the same kind of thing. You know, it's like emulator. It's just got thousands. You can switch between the systems and
Yeah.
stuff. But it's got all these like bizarre, dirty Italian games on it. And
Okay.
the last time a guy came to do the maintenance, he's like, "Yeah, I found all these weird dirty games on there, so I'm just gonna delete them." And then one of the girls that I work with, Ziggy, who's a little bit of a horn dog, she's like, "Don't you dare like stay away from my dirty Italian games."
Yeah, keep the titties on there.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, "Okay."
That's mad.
But that's great.
That's awesome. So what have you been up to, Tim? How's your week look?
Just tattooing all day, every day. It's been really flat out. It's like everyone wants to get stuff done before summer hits because then they want to go to the beach.
Oh,
They
they
want
want
to
to
be
show
out
their
in the
bodies
sun.
off.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's the worst time to get tattooed because then you go
Right.
and get sunburned or you get all like sand in them and all that kind of stuff. But
Tattoos up.
I think it's just like people start thinking of themselves at the beach and they want to, they want to they want to get a new tattoo or something like that. And so so now's the time where they all start coming in. So it's been super super hectic. But aside from that, what have I been playing? I just recently I've been playing a bunch of pretty heavy games lately, like lots of real kind of dark stuff. Like I got really into Darkwood and a couple other things, and then I just wanted something really light to kind of chill out on. So I started playing The Messenger. I'm not sure if you guys do that. It's like a retro style kind of like it's like it's supposed to look like 8-bit or 16-bit or whatever, but it's really like, if you really look at it, it's like, no, it's not. There's like, it's actually got a lot more going on than that. But it's a really interesting kind of reinterpretation and subversion of classic like side scroller tropes where you play it and you're like, I know what to expect because I've played these games. It looks like one of these games I'm going to play. And then there's a couple moments where it really just flips things around and it's like, we'll introduce a mechanic or something like that. And it's like, oh shit, okay, well, let's just, it's pretty good. It's
I'm just looking at it on my other screen at the moment. It, like literally at first look, it looks like an old school
the
16-bit ninja game.
Yeah. It's very like old school Ninja Gaiden. It's full of like references to that kind of stuff. But the one thing that really blew me away was the music is incredible. And I mean, it's like it's all done so it sounds like those retro soundboards. But there's I think there's like too many notes being played at a time that you never would have been able to do something back in the day. The sound in particular, like they just nail it, and it's like everything gets stuck in your head in the same way that the old games songs do. So it's really good. It's pretty fun. I'm having a good time with it so far.
Yeah, no, it looks really cool.
That's cool. It does look cool though. Looks really cool.
Yeah. So Tim, tell us about yourself. What do you do?
I am a tattoo artist. I'm from Auckland. I grew up sort of between West and South Auckland, and I have a YouTube channel, and a lot of people know me more probably from Twitter for just talking shit about politics and Maori stuff. Yes, so I'm of Pākehā and Maori descent, so Ngāpuhi, Tiwai, from up north.
Yep.
So I am one of the only people I know of kind of in the, I guess, YouTube sphere of people that make videos about games and politics and stuff that actually kind of I think comes from an indigenous community, so a lot of my videos talk about that kind of stuff, like themes of like colonialism in games, and even how there are like certain games that have appropriated kind of parts of our culture, which is something that we are obviously going to talk about today. I haven't made a video about Cyberpunk, but I might in the future, but I do kind of feel like I am becoming quite over talking about it.
Yeah.
So I checked my message requests, which I never check. Just, and every time I've had a post blow up or whatever, that just becomes like a dumpster fire. And yeah, there's like maybe like a dozen different streams and stuff that wanted me to come on and talk, and there's like, like there's like newspaper reporters and shit like that, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, and I like, this is probably the only one that I'm gonna do because like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like I feel like,
Oh well, next time anyone wants to know your opinion, just send them the link to our video,
I
and
know,
we'll
I'll
just
just
get the
yeah,
views.
yeah, I'll send it to you guys, but yeah. So I feel like, I mean, people have been asking me a lot about it, and I'm just like the cyberpunk issue for me is quite interesting because it
Mm,
is extremely up my alley
mm.
from being a kid that grew up being really invested in cyberpunk, like games and books and RPGs and things like that. So yeah, and I think that the nature of what they've done is quite cyberpunk in itself. But
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
So
that's the thing. So I made a Twitter thread a little while back when Tony Hawk Pro Skater the reboot came out, and they
Yeah.
had incorporated some Maori and Polynesian tattooing into the game, but it was kind of like this really cringy kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It said like even
it
like the
was.
name of the design was called like Polyface or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
just a
I
bit
was going to
cringe.
say it's one thing stealing or using appropriating someone's culture, but then to use insulting names of it. Like I saw Polyface and I was just like, you are literally only a step away from saying blackface.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that, and it was like it's pretty cringe. And heaps of people kept asking me about it, and like I made a bit of a thread on it, and then I woke up the next morning and it had like thousands of likes and retweets and stuff. And then it kind of every now and then when something like this pops up in a game, people like that thread gets picked up again and
Yeah.
stuff. So
I was literally going to say I've had that thread tweeted at me
yeah,
a few times in the last few weeks. So
I've had people like ask me like, "Hey, have you seen this guy who's like talking about this stuff on Twitter?" And I'd be like, "Oh, that's me."
yeah,
Like, Or like I've had friends as well. Like I had a friend in Japan who said that a friend in Japan who's Maori as well, who had a friend saying like, "Oh yeah, I read this really interesting Twitter thread about your traditional tattooing," and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's my friend," because it's like this
yeah,
thing where it's like like it's racist to assume that all Maori people know each other, but
yeah.
then you go on Twitter, like I've literally had people on Twitter be like, "Oh yeah, do you know this person?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but you can't just assume that."
Right. It's actually funny you say it. Like, I think it's a funny thing with Kiwis in general, though.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, Jack will attest to this, where we've had a co-worker that we used to sit in the same office as, and someone would come up in the news, and it would be like, "Oh, Fid, do you know them?" And I'd be like, "You can't assume just because I'm a Kiwi that I know them."
Yeah. But I
And
do.
then she goes, "But do you know them?" Yeah, I do, but that's not the point.
It's like, yeah, there's like they say 6 degrees of separation with anyone in the world, but in New Zealand it's like two,
It is two
It's like,
degrees, yeah.
yeah. Like people will be like, "Oh,
Literally
have
where the
you?"
mobile company got their name from.
Yeah. Like people when I've been in like the States and stuff, people are like, "Oh, like Sam Neill. Do you know Sam Neill?" And I'm like, "No, I know his daughter."
Yeah, right.
Like I don't know him though.
It was there was a campaign we were working on for one of our clients a while back, and they wanted to work with a particular Hollywood celebrity who's a Kiwi,
Mm.
and they were like, "Oh, I know it's a long shot, but what are the chances we could get this person?" And I was like, "Well, I could ask them."
Yeah. Oh, that it's like, oh yeah, they like yeah, we're Twitter friends or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
can
yeah,
I'll just DM them. But yeah. No,
exactly.
it's a bit hectic like that, or it's like, oh yeah, they're my like cousin's best mate, or like they played
Mm.
rugby with my friend or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
but yeah. Mm.
So I think this is probably a good chance for us to jump into the bones of it. Like I particularly wanted you to come on the show. Well, look, I'll be frank. I tweeted the other day saying, as much as I know what I know about the situation, my wife's Māori, my kids are Māori. I grew up in small town New Zealand and
Hmm.
all that sort of thing. I am not Māori.
Yeah.
So I felt that wasn't my place to speak on this. I think the verbiage I used was I didn't want to white explain it.
Yeah.
So I did put a tweet out there saying, "Hey, who wants to come on the show? Would love Māori content creator, someone who knows a bit about this to come on." You were the first suggestion, and you literally said, "Yep." let's do it. So I appreciate you taking the time out, especially since you literally just got home from work too.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that's the funny thing. It was like, like I was late to come on stream and talk about Maori tattooing because I was at work doing Maori tattoos. It's like, yeah. But no, it's like, I mean,
That's pretty cool though.
That's it. I'm just yeah. I'm living it. I'm deep amongst it.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
So I think the first thing is your reaction. I'd love to know your reaction to Cyberpunk as soon as this came up.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I saw it because someone tweeted at me they had seen the picture on, I think, like on Reddit or something, and they were like, they knew that it was my like kind of little niche or whatever, and they were like, have you seen this? What do you think? And it was like a face palm, like, because it's one of those things where it's like, I'm kind of like, I'm so used to it.
It's almost the GTA meme of, oh shit, here we go again.
Yeah, exactly. And I have edited myself into that meme before, but I didn't get time to do it this time. But, no, it's just like one of those things, and it is like it's this constant thing of it just keeps coming up, and we have like, I think when I tweeted about it, I said like, how many times do we have to have this conversation? Because it's literally like it's every like couple of weeks or so we have this exact same conversation. That's why I wrote the thread when Tony Hawk stuff came out, and I said then it's like people always ask me about this stuff, and like I've explained it so many times, so here it is. Here's like a pretty solid thread to explain what's up. And I when I did the Tony Hawk's one, I wasn't like, I was being pretty neutral, like if you read through it, I wasn't like, I hate this, let's cancel Tony Hawk personally, I'm gonna come to his house for reparations or anything like that. It was just like, this is why this is upsetting for a lot of us. This is why we don't like it. This is a history of things like this happening, and like this is the actual meaning behind, like what all this is, sort of thing. Like kind of explain it, and I think I did it pretty neutrally. And a lot of people.
Because I mean, this isn't a situation where it's let's cancel these publishers, right?
Oh no, I mean it's like well, not for this,
Yeah, well, no, not for this one. No, but it's like weird. We were having a talk before Jack joined the call. Like both you and I agree. Like we want to play Cyberpunk. It looks like it's going to be a dope game.
Yeah. There's like it's like that thing where it's like we can enjoy something and we can also want it to be better, and we can we can say like, yeah, this was really cool, but what you did here wasn't so cool, and maybe you could kind of sort it out, or you can do better in the future. And then there's a couple issues that have come up with Cyberpunk with like a few different things, but this was the one that was kind of closest to home for me. So I made a thread about it, and so I put up the picture that got sent to me, and it didn't take long, but they sent me a DMCA thing and took the image down, which I think was funny because it's like I got it to my email and it's like got like the CEO of CD Projekt Red and like all this stuff, and it's like
no way.
Yeah, it's pretty hectic, but it's
that's crazy.
I thought that was interesting because it is technical. Like, I mean, I don't actually care about that image getting taken down. Like, that doesn't bother me whatsoever. I kind of expected something like that would happen. And a lot of people have tried to reframe it as this thing. Like, I saw people making tweets being like, look at this like entitled streamer who's like crying because his picture got taken down. And I was like, okay, first of all, how dare you refer to me as the S slur? And then secondly, like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about the picture. Like, it's like, that is literally like just this minor thing on the side. But, I mean,
arguably you could be doing the iwis around New Zealand could be doing the same thing with.
I know, but that's the thing. Like,
using Māori IP.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So, there at the moment we can't we can't like copyright an art form, only specific instances of it. And this is something that a lot of people have worked on over the years, because it's like So if that was someone's moko that they had taken directly from a painting, there would be a case to be like, hey, you can't use this. But
Yeah.
as an art form, like they only have to like change it a little bit and then it's sweet or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of
Okay.
it's a very cyberpunk thing to have a multi-billion-dollar corporation appropriate your traditional tattooing and then send you a DMCA report to take down the image of the stolen art. Well, you know, it's weird.
Yeah.
But and even like the DMCAs aren't supposed to work like that because it was a photo that someone had taken of the game, and I mean, neither me or CD Projekt Red are in the States anyway. So it's kind of a disingenuous use of the system, which I mean, I've tried not to read too much into it, but a lot of people are saying that it's kind of like a deliberate suppression of criticism because the same image is still sitting up in posts that have a lot higher engagement than my one did, but where they're saying positive things and they're saying that it's cool and stuff. So it's kind of like, it's interesting that someone from CD Projekt Red actually had to do this manually. It wasn't like an automated thing that took out all instances of the picture. So they
It
must
was
be
specifically
aware of it in
yours.
some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, it reeks of silencing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of corny. It's like, man, you saw it, but you don't want to say anything. Like, cool,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah. But I mean, it's like that's the thing. It's like this is a huge corporation. There's probably just some like dude living in a third world country getting paid barely anything to like process these reports or whatever like that. So it's like he has no direct line. You know, he sees something, sends a DMCA report. He has no direct line to the actual team making the game, being like, "Hey, there's someone here who's got a valid criticism for you guys." You know, it's like,
Yeah.
like this system is so big. It's like, I mean, I don't have like like I said, the DMCA thing is like a minor thing for me. For me, it's yeah, and I think that's actually another thing. Like people acting like, you know, like me and other people speaking out about it are like entitled for you know, like posting about this before launch or whatever like that, when it's like this is literally a multi-billion-dollar company that has felt entitled to use our traditions, like something that is like very, very important to us. And they just, you know, they felt entitled to just use it without even actually talking to anyone. So yeah, I find that pretty funny. Like that's the main thing really. Like for myself and others, when we have talked about this in the past, like I was on Maori TV talking about this back when Tony Hawk came off, and with some other activists, and we were talking about how it's we just want to have a discussion with these people whenever anyone is trying to do something like this. It would be ideal if they would come to us first and talk about how they can do it in a way that is not going to be offensive, in a way that is going to be appropriate for what they want to do, if it is appropriate for what they want to do, you know. Because a lot of people have been replying with like, so does this mean that, you know, you can't have like Maori tattooing in games at all? And it's like, well, no, it's not that we're saying that, but there are specific things about this kind of depiction that are offensive. And yeah, we just kind of want to have the discussion. We want to talk to people about it, and we want to, you know,
Yeah, so perfect for you to bring this up, because that was literally going to be my next point. Was the response that I've been getting on Twitter has been super positive. I haven't had anybody being a dick about it, but the genuine question, mainly from people who either aren't New Zealanders or they're New Zealanders that might be a bit naive, is how can this be done and be done properly? Like, is there a
well, that
avenue
was literally
be done?
what my question, like my reply to your statement just then would be. Like, you know, I don't really have at all like an indigenous culture behind me whatsoever. So to see things like this, in one mind, I'm reading obviously what you're posting and what Fid's posting, and you know, Carice and people, you know, that I've had in my life for quite a while now, and have really opened my eyes to other cultures, especially the New Zealand culture, which I really had no idea about before meeting Fid anyway. And I met a few people along the way, but you never really had it sort of that close to home. And you know, you see it and I'm like, that's cool that it's in the game. And then you see it on the other hand where it's like, but it hasn't been done right. what's the how would you go about it from
Yeah.
a project lead space to make this
Mm.
completely okay and something that you would be really proud of to have in a video game?
Yeah. So there's like a couple of things to address there. So the main thing that we find with games like this and with Tony Hawk's is that these so the designs that they're using are appropriations of ours. Like most of the time you can tell like, oh okay, they've taken like this like Goldie painting and they've like just like altered it slightly or whatever, or someone's just kind of drawn
Yeah.
over it. And like you can tell that they've gotten it from somewhere sort of thing, but they just haven't actually understood it to the point that they like there'll be little things about it and you'll be like, okay, cool, well I know that this wasn't drawn by someone who knew what they were doing, because like the way that they're using these patterns here or the way that it flows or whatever, this is just like not the way that we would do it.
Yeah.
But like the whole thing is like, if it was any other kind of like style of like chin tattoo or whatever, that would totally be fine. It's whatever. Like no one's saying you can't have like, facial tattoos or whatever like that. But when we can tell that these are very specifically trying to emulate our traditional designs, that's when it kind of becomes a little bit weird. So if it
Because I
was
guess
like
it'd be in. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there, but it's like I'm just trying to understand from a like a design perspective.
mm,
There's a way you go about it, and a way. Am I right to say like the way it would be constructed from, you know, ground up, the way that some of the angles would be, in a way that the colors would be, in a way that the rounding of certain parts would be. You can tell when someone
yeah.
that's not of culture has done it.
Yeah,
By
it's
the
one of
way,
those things where it's like it's very hard to tell unless you are like immersed in it. So it's like people always
Yep.
ask me like, how can you tell when it? Because like I've traveled around the world and I've seen people that have like bad imitations of Maori tattoos. I've been like at tattoo conventions and I've seen people, and it's like, and they're always like,
Oh
how can you
no.
tell? And it's like a very hard thing to explain unless you're immersed in it. And
It's almost like they've just taken
basically
a
it's like,
picture to someone
did
that's
you
not a traditional tattooist and said, "Can you put this on my arm?" And they've gone, "All right," and they've just traced it.
Yeah, that's generally what happens. Or you get like a lot of the time now we get like, people that will they'll be in like Amsterdam or something like that, and they will become like, like they will take on this tribal persona as like a Ta Moko kind of like a Tatao specialist. And they will like they would just follow everyone on Instagram or like traditional
yeah.
artists, and like you'll see it and you'll be like, oh man, like this person in Europe just got like a crazy similar tattoo to one that like Heeds or someone did last week, and it's like just so there is
Yeah,
definitely a lot
right.
of that. But
Yeah.
there's like I mean the way that we can look at it is that the way that these tattoos are constructed says like everything from like the shape, the patterns inside to where the negative space is, and even like, so not just what parts are tattooed, but what parts are left empty.
Yeah.
Everything means something. So it's kind of like in my tweet, the example I used was when you see someone using a font that is deliberately supposed to look like Chinese or Japanese like characters, but it's just like some shitty noodle house font or whatever like that, where it's like,
Oh yeah.
it says something in English, but it's supposed to look Japanese. It's that kind of thing where it's like, okay, I can see what you want this to look like, but it doesn't say anything, like it
Yeah.
doesn't like, it just like, yeah, it's like,
It's almost like
obviously
they've
we can
just
see what you're doing.
done lines and squiggles to make it kind of
Yeah, but
look
it's
like
like,
it with no meaning
yeah,
behind it. And
they've looked at a bunch of pictures and they've kind of created an approximation based on those, but
yeah.
without knowing exactly why those lines are in certain places, why those gaps are there, what
Yeah.
those kind of little bits. Yeah, I mean, so it's like, yeah, if you're immersed in it, it's like very easy to immediately tell if something is just kind of made up. Like, and yeah, even on Reddit, there was someone posted it on Reddit, and there was some person who had kind of put a little explainer about it, which wasn't technically correct. It was kind of like, I feel like it was like someone who maybe meant well but didn't actually understand. They were Maori and they did have like some level of understanding, but
Yeah.
they had posted about it. Okay, this is what it means, and it's actually cool because it's not Ta Moko. It's another thing called kirituhi, which in Maori that means skin art, and it's like it's fine because it's kirituhi.
Mm.
So it's all good.
It's
It's fair
basically
game.
Ta Moko for non-Māori, right?
Yeah, which is like a legitimate concept. It's a word. It's an extremely recent word that
Yeah.
it's not something that, it's probably only like 10 or 15 years old. Like I remember when
Right.
people started using that word,
Yeah.
and
So that would be like if you wanted to get a
Yeah.
Ta Moko, you
So
would get
I've got one
the
designed
new.
up that's inspired by Ta Moko and Celtic Knot.
yeah.
It's done by a Māori guy here in Sydney, and this Kiriti.
Yeah. So that's what that would fit under. But
Okay.
there are still rules for that. Whereas like,
Yeah. So does it still follow the same sort of rules?
kind of, but it doesn't actually, like, the patterns don't speak to any tribal affiliations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like it is our kind of shapes and forms and everything like that. But whereas like, so if like usually when someone is getting their Ta Moko done, it is the patterns that we are using in it speak to like not just their family, like the actual shapes in it will be like represent people in their family, in their life, all that kind of stuff. Or like it's pretty complex, but then that is actual patterns in it that'll be like, okay, cool, these are patterns from like this tribe up north, or these ones are from down south, whatever, like that. So
Yep.
you can look at it, and if you know what you're looking at, you can tell where they're from and stuff. So if it's like,
That's
so
crazy.
if someone doesn't have any tribal affiliations, you obviously can't add that in. I mean, like some people, like it's something that a lot of people that are just ripping off other people's tattoos do occasionally. You'll see like, okay, why is this guy,
No,
like this
that's
guy is a
almost
Ngāpuhi or whatever.
like a heap of the Aussies at Cronulla with their postcodes tatted on them. It'd literally be like you just getting someone else's postcode tatted on you.
Yeah. Just like stuff like that, It's like, but that's the thing, and it's
Or
considered.
almost anybody in the 90s who got a tribal tattoo.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's like a whole like other thing that I could go on for ages about. But no, so it's like, it's for us, it's disrespectful to the people that actually those patterns do speak to, but it's also considered like it would be disrespectful for you because you're disrespecting your own ancestors by getting like fucking made in New Zealand tattooed on you when you're from Australia, But yeah, so that's like a thing that happens. But yeah, back to Kuratu, it's like so there is a kind of agreement that we don't do that in specific places that emulate more important traditional kind of tattoos. Like, so
You never do Kiriti on the face.
Yeah. So the main one is the face. Like you might get something like the one we call putaranga, which is like around the ears, like around here. Like something like that is like less of a taboo sort of thing. But anything like kawai, which is like the chin for women, mataura, so yeah, like basically anything on the main front of the face, especially around like the nose and mouth is and forehead is like just completely off limits. And then for dudes, there's also either gender can get puhoro, which is like on the thighs, and raperope, which is like on the butt and stuff. But that's like that's one that gets done a lot by people overseas who just think it's like, oh, that's just a Maori thigh tattoo or whatever like that, but they don't realize that one is kind of held in equal esteem to the face and stuff. Like it's
I mean, I've personally been on marae when people have gotten the thighs and ass done, and it's like a 3-day
it's a big thing.
Entire whānau's there.
That's like like for a lot of people that's like kind of like in kind of outside of traditional tattooing, like people think of like in like Japanese tattooing or like American traditional tattooing, people think of like the back piece as like that's the big like the crowning tattoo sort of thing, like the biggest one a person can get. But for Maori, that the thighs and butt is pretty much it. Well, like aside from like the face and stuff, but like not everyone goes for the face just because of things being the other way they are.
You know what?
So there's like an agreement where we don't tattoo designs that emulate those kind of designs in those spaces because that's kind of off limits. So you can get Kuratu, you can get it on your ankle, your arm, your whatever, but those spots, those are kind of those are off the table.
Because that was going to be my next question. Would just say CD Projekt Red, they were like, we want to get the Ta Moko or whatever the new word is, sorry, could they have like reached out to you and said, put it out on Twitter and said, we want to get this made up? Is that something we can do? We really want to, do it right.
Yeah.
But obviously, you saying now it makes a lot more sense to me, because before I was going to ask, could they just get the new way of doing it for the chin and then it would be okay?
Yeah, no.
But
Yeah, not
the
for the
end of
chin.
what you
Like, if it was
said
like,
makes
yeah,
so much more sense now, is that is such a sacred part of the
yeah,
culture that there's no way, unless you're actually getting it legitimately done, like there's no like new way of
yeah,
doing
yeah.
it that could be okay.
Especially like the
makes so much
head
more
and
sense
face
now.
in general are like pretty considered like extremely sacred, and
Yep.
especially around like the nose and mouth and stuff. So it's like those in particular are a big deal, but also because it's like because it's kind of really, it's such a bold statement. The Matilda, like the face tattoo, has
Yeah.
become kind of permanently kind of, I guess, aligned with like the kind of decolonization movement and this kind of like reclaiming of Maori identity. So that's why people really feel it harder for this, because it's like, no, this is like for like having our culture like deliberately, like they tried to exterminate it, they tried to push this out, and like kind of tried to erase it completely from existing, and we've been like pulling it back. And so this is a very like the Matilda is like such a kind of a symbol of that kind of movement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for that particularly to be taken is really offensive, and that's why a little while back a game called Greedfall came out, and I made a video on it. It's like an open world RPG, but it's literally the themes of the game are about colonialism, and it's like this whole thing about like you go to this island and you take it over, and you like there's all like the natives that are already there and stuff like that. And one of the characters who
Holy
is
shit.
on the colonial side, there's like this fantasy culture that they've invented of like these kind of like, it's like these corsair kind of people of the seas that are like part of the colonizing force or whatever. They have these tattoos that are like, they are Matilda, like they're ripped off. Like looking at them, it's like, okay, cool, you've got the patterns wrong, but everything is there. And it's like, not only is that offensive to reproduce these tattoos because of the reasons I've just pointed out, but also because of the themes of colonization and everything in these games. This is like a slap in the face, like
massively.
So that one was a real sore spot for a lot of people. And yeah, like the thing is, before it even came out,
wow,
the promotional
I'm just
materials.
looking
Yeah, you see what I mean, right?
now.
And
But there is no
so
doubt
many-
whatsoever where the inspiration for that came from.
Yeah. So many people spoke out about it. Like I was talking about it on Twitter, but there was a lot of people I know, like a lot of like Maori academics and everything like that, and cultural consultants that were hitting up the company Spider Games, I think it is, and saying like, hey, look, you've got this game that's coming out in about 6 months' time. This is kind of inappropriate, and this isn't great, but we'd be
like
really willing to work with you and kind of like,
we've still got time to fix this, guys.
Yeah,
basically,
properly.
like it's like kind of like, hey, look, like, because I mean, I think with stuff like this, with stuff like Cyberpunk, with stuff like Tony Hawk's, it's not coming from a place of maliciousness.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's ignorance, but it's not that kind of like malicious
hateful.
ignorance. Yeah. It's just like they just have no idea. They just like probably jump on Google and they look up facial tattoos and they're like, yeah, that looks cool. And it's like, I get it. It does look cool. But there's this whole thing, like the idea of like the whole concept of like the noble savage, which is a way that a lot of indigenous cultures around the world are kind of portrayed as these kind of like
the warrior
like,
race.
these warrior races and stuff like that, which has been a really damaging stereotype for a lot of us, especially in New Zealand, where it's like, even when I was growing up, like in the 90s and early 2000s, I remember newspaper articles, things on the news talking about our warrior genes
I
and
was
why
waiting
we
for
were
that.
like why we were more suited for like like kind of like a martial lifestyle of like combat or rugby or something like that. And it's just like, which is like ridiculous, because I feel like it's it's like this thing, right? It's like, even I remember getting in a fight at school or whatever, and people would be like, oh, he's like part Maori, oh, it's like warrior genes and shit like that. But then it's like, okay, cool, well, I remember growing like vegetables in horticulture class, and no one was like, oh, it's that Maori ancestry. It's like the horticultural genes or whatever.
give him the guitar. He's bound to know how to play. He's Māori.
Yeah, just stuff like that.
All
But you know,
Māoris
like it's
know how to play guitar.
yeah, like so there's like these stereotypes, and it's like something that yeah is like really damaging for a lot
Yeah.
of people. And then you see it, you know, like in like movies like Once Were Warriors and all that kind of stuff, where it just perpetuates these myths. And like, you know, like a lot of people think of that movie as New Zealand, and they're like, yeah, it's so sick. It's like New Zealand and Maori and all this kind of stuff like that. But it's like, man, like most Maori people I know fucking hate that movie because and the book and stuff because it was so damaging
And
to the culture in general, you know.
in saying that, and this is a conversation I've had a lot about that movie. I think, yeah, there was definitely some damage done by that movie, but I also think we're going off on a tangent here. But I think at that time and place in New Zealand, it was a conversation that needed to be had when it came to family violence and domestic violence and stuff.
So
So it was like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I think because like yeah, I know people that like you know older people that like kind of are from the same area as Alan Duff was, and like he was a rich kid growing up and he didn't live that life. And then you get like guys like Dr. Ranganui Walker who had a lifelong beef with Alan Duff because
he wrote the book. He wrote the book about it, didn't he? Is he the one who wrote the response to Alan Duff?
Oh yes, yeah. No, he did. I don't know if it was like a book, but it was like like he actually wrote about it a couple times. But yeah, no, and he nailed it, and it was like this very thing where he wasn't trying to be malicious or anything like
Educating
that.
Jake, that's the name of the book.
Oh yeah, actually no, no, I haven't seen that one, but that's it's interesting. I have to check it out. But he wrote like a bunch of essays and stuff about it, and it's like he was so onto it, and he was actually tackling a lot of those issues and talking about these things. And then so this dude came along and did like a really damaging job of it, and kind of like then like he took it really personally. And even after Dr. Walker died, Alan Duff was like, you know, in the newspaper talking shit on him and stuff, and it's just like bro, like you need to like chill out, like because but I think that's a thing. Like, there are these like really harmful ideas that have just been kind of absorbed into the like the collective consciousness to the point where a lot of people have internalized them, and a lot of kids growing up be like, I can't do that, like that's not something for me because you know I'm Maori, and that's like, you know, it's something like white kids get to do or whatever like that, you know. And it is a really shitty, terrible thing, but it also kind of like you see it play out in other things as well, like in healthcare, social work, all these different fields where there are these perceptions about Maori just being this like kind of you know, just this like warrior race that is really terrible at like
it's
you know,
even
like
even right down to like, this is sharing a story, personal story here of one of my really good high school friends became a police officer, and literally he'd been on the job for about 2 years before me and him had a massive falling out, and it's purely because his opinion on Māori shifted from being, I would say, arguably neutral about Māori to very negative about Māori. And it was all totally institutional racism based on his job.
And I think that's part of the training and everything as well. Like they literally, you know, like teach them about profiling and all this kind of stuff, and all these shitty ideas reinforced. So that's like why when you see a video game come out like that, and the way that these tattoos are always used as a way of showing that this person is a warrior, or even like this person is edgy and kind of like, you know, like that's why a lot of people were upset. They were like, oh, it's just like Cyberpunk are just using it as this like little punk accessory to give your characters a little bit of an edge, where it's like we're trying to kind of trying to get rid of those kind of preconceptions. So it's like, you know, you could look at someone that has a kawaii walking down the street and be like, okay, well that's, you know, that's not just some like warrior or whatever like that. That's just someone's mom or someone's, you know, like whatever like that. It's like it should be totally chill like that. But
see the similar reaction to Debbie Packer at the moment in the New Zealand government.
Totally.
I've known Debbie for years. I come from the same town as her.
Oh, cool.
And I remember when she first got the tattoo, the negative response she got back home was ridiculous. Then once she entered Parliament, the same thing.
There's been a lot of
I just looked at it and that was Auntie Debbie.
There's like been a lot of like kind of pretty hectic racism about that. But the wild thing is that there are a lot of these attitudes that have become internalized, where to the point where a lot of Maori are quite negative about it themselves. Like a lot of my friends who do have their full face matata have said that like they weren't prepared. Like when they got it done, the artist, the kaita or the ringata that did it, told them like, don't go out by yourself for a few days. Like take people with you, go out with family and stuff. Don't go out by yourself because it will be a shock. And yeah, like a friend of mine, Josh Pucky, who had his done recently, he said he went out, he just thought, whatever, you know, like I'm a big boy, whatever, I'll go out, do it. And then he said, actually, nah, it's like actually really weird, like the way that people look at you, and even though so the way that other Maori look at you, because there is this internalized kind of idea that it is something that should belong to the past, or all these kind of like misconceptions about like people believe that if you have that, you have to have earned it in the way that you must be like a chief or something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas the reality is that you like the it's you have earned it by being Maori. Like that is it. That's it. Like
Well,
it's all you had to do. Like
my wife actually has had an argument quite regularly with a quite high up in Māoridom, this dude. Really good friends with the guy, but his philosophy is you should ta moko your tongue before you ta moko your face.
I hate that saying. Yeah, it's
and
terrible.
that's basically if you can't speak te reo Māori, then you have no right to get the tattoo. And she's
Like-
been like, well, no, I'm born Māori. If I want to get ta moko, I will get ta moko.
No, that's like a really damaging idea that is quite insidious, especially. But I mean, it's like it's something that a lot of people have been talking about recently, and there have been like so, you know,
Don't get me wrong. I think the rise of Te Reo Māori as a language and
no, it's amazing. And it's like
rejuvenation of it and it becoming normalized is all super important.
Yeah, the more people that can speak it, the better, and I think it's amazing. But I mean, like I know some of the most like revered Ta Moko artists in the country, or you know, people working operating the world, and not all of them are even like fluent. A lot of them aren't, you know, and it's like I don't think it's a good idea to shame someone for not speaking Maori when it's like our parents' generation were being beat in school for speaking it. So it's like you can't blame someone for not knowing that, when it's like, you know, even like it's like, you know, there's a lot of people in like my parents' generation and older who don't like feel weird about it coming back because they're like, you know, that's just going to get you in trouble or something like that. You know, it's so internalized.
That's also the same generation that grew up with blood quantums and stuff being used for measurement as well.
Yeah, totally. It's like all these kind of foreign ideas that got introduced, where it's like the actual kind of the historic beliefs around it got replaced with these really kind of like colonial Christian kind of ideas, and that includes everything from ta moko to like gender identity and, you know, sexuality and everything like that.
And there's another conversation which I'd love to have, but that's another one. It's a super fascinating one though. We almost need to get a podcast started where it's just discussing all this sort of stuff. It is so deep and interesting, the history of Māoridom, that isn't openly discussed.
Yeah, it is. It's starting to now. There's a lot of really amazing academics that are kind of like getting into this stuff, but it's like it's wild that so there are a lot of people that have that feeling like you need to be able to speak fluent before you you know, take any kind of prominent moko or anything like that, whereas it's like the only people I've ever heard say this, none of them have actually been ringata or so ringata or like kaita is like what we call for like just a person who is a ta moko artist, but then there's like ta moko tahunga, which is like that would be like someone who's like considered like a guru or whatever. And none of those people I've ever heard say anything like that whatsoever. But there tends to be like these people that are kind of like, I think a little bit too kind of
on the soapbox.
I mean, I think it's like this thing where it's like they like we want to bring these things back for everyone so that like it can be something that we all celebrate as a culture together, but then there are people that do want to celebrate this kind of like cultural elitism, and
Yep.
it's always going to be something, whether it's like you're not, you don't speak enough, you're not brown enough, you're not, whatever, like there's always going to be people that have opinions like that. And I mean, it's like something that people are trying to weed out and show them that there's a better way, because those are basically just, like they're just repeating like these kind of like colonial lies that have been pushed on us. And it's kind of like we're getting to the point where this is broaching like mainstream discussion, where we can have these discussions, and you can have a discussion with us like with a kid in school and they'll understand what you're talking about, whereas like this was previously the realm of like academics only, and a lot of academia was kind of closed to Maori for a long time. So it's like great to be able to see, like, you can just go on Instagram and there'll be people making memes about this stuff, and it's like this way that these ideas are proliferating down to the average person or whatever, and we can have these discussions about like what is culturally appropriate and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't need to be in these closed doors of academia or anything like that anymore. It's like we can just talk about it. And and that's something that is good, because when it comes to things like video games, movies, animation, all that kind of stuff, these days, like, someone can form a nuanced opinion on something after, like, they can play a video game, a young Maori kid can play it and be like, yeah, this sucks, I don't really agree with it for that reason, but like, like, I still have I have complicated feelings about this, and I know how to express it correctly. I know how to talk to people about it. Whereas in the past, it would just be kind of like, I don't know, like, it looks weird, but I also like seeing something that represents myself in this game. Like, it's like this thing. Like,
funny you say that, because it's one thing that I said, like back when H1Z1 did their thing, where they put a mask on, they put Ta Moko inspired designs onto a gun. Granted, it was literally just after the shooting in Christchurch, which was horrible timing. But I remember saying, look, representation is super important, right? People do want to see people that represent them in games, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like,
and they called it the macho crate.
I think it's like
the macho man.
like representation without actual, like, I guess, kind of
consultation,
positive engagement. It just doesn't mean anything. It's like, if the people that you are trying to represent aren't happy with this, then what's the point of this representation? Like, what does it mean?
To give Daybreak Studios credit, when we wrote about it, we heard from them and they ended up removing it from the game. So full credit to them. That was the right thing for them to do. Somebody did ask me on Twitter, like I said, their thing was, I'll actually read out their tweet, out of curiosity of wanting to know more about the culture, traditions of people and friends of mine, who would be the person to give permission for the use of Ta Moko? And what would the approval process be? And would that be, and this is the tough one, would that approval be absolute? So my response, I'll give you my response, and you're free to correct me on this too.
Okay, no, go for it. Yeah.
So I just said, look, you can start by talking to the New Zealand Ministry of Culture, or talk to any of the universities that have a Māori department. There's academics there that can start the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, like, I think the thing is mainly, like, I mean, it's a very, like, I guess, individualistic way of looking at things, where it's like, you think that there is one single person that can say yes or no, but there's not, and we don't make these decisions individually, but as a kind of collective. Like, so over the years, there's been a whole bunch of who are you, like, big meetings that sometimes they call them wānanga, like a kind of like learning session, where Ta Moko artists from all over the place will get together. And so there's like Moko Ora is one that has happened a couple times now. There's another one, Te Ui Mataura. And so they are like kind of like it's like a convention for all Ta Moko artists to come together. And I mean, like, not everyone kind of makes it there, but, like, these big events that people get together and they talk about these things, like, what is appropriate, what can we decide? And it's like, this thing is that a lot of people think, because it's an old tradition, that it is set in stone, but it's not. We're a culture that is constantly evolving, and we can change how we feel about these things, and we can get together and we can talk and we can be like, actually, these days we feel like this is fine
Well,
now.
a lot of the traditions that Māori hold as important now were post-colonial traditions anyway.
Yeah. It's like it's like an evolving thing, and it's like there is an effort to kind of revert to what was considered traditional beforehand, and kind of, but it's this thing where it's like we don't have to completely indigenize and go back to the old ways, but we can choose to keep certain things and stuff. But the whole thing is that we just we decide what is appropriate, and we get together and we talk as a group, as a collective. And that's like a huge thing in Māori culture, is like, it's not so much about like this veneration of the individual person, but as like what benefits us as a collective. And so like those are the things, like those are the kind of events where people get together and they talk about like, hey, actually, how do we feel about Pākehā getting these kind of tattoos, that kind of stuff. So yeah, so that's the thing where it's like there is no one person that could say whether it was okay or not. And there are groups that have done a good job at collaborating with Maori, in particular Civ 5 with Gathering Storm, how they brought in Kupe.
It's exactly the example I gave in my article. I think 2K did an amazing job.
Yeah, and they actually talked to what's the name? It's like the Oceanic Trust, I think, who they actually collaborated with them, and they're like, okay, what is appropriate? What can we do? We want to, like, because the idea with Civilization is that they want to portray these historic figures as faithfully, but also as like kind of in a good light. They don't want them to like, like they want to make sure that the people they're representing feel represented or whatever. And and they actually did a really good job with a lot of stuff in there, even like stuff to do with like the kind of cultural kind of like the things that were available to you as Maori, and the way that your society is structured, all that kind of stuff. It's really fascinating, the detail that they went to, and that's one example of doing it really good. But I think there is a misconception that people say that people think that they can pay a cultural consultant who will tell them that it's okay, or tell them the right way to do something, when sometimes there is no right way for you to do this for what you want to do. Like, I've like I was saying earlier, my DMs get flooded anytime this thing takes off, with all these people messaging me being like, I'm making a comic book, I'm making a video game, I'm doing this. How can I do this? And it's like, it's so much, like, I mean, it's like it's like way too much work for anyone to take on I would never be able to go through. So I just, as
so it would almost get to a point where it's like there is no way of doing it right. Like you appreciate them like reaching out and saying we want to try and do it right, but there is no way. So
it depends on what they want to do, right?
To do it.
Yeah, there are ways that you could do it right, and there are, depending on your project, what you want to do and why you want to do it and everything like that. Like, say you were making a game or a movie or something like that, and you did have a Maori character who did have, like this was supposed to be a person that has a history and a story, like a complex character. Yeah, like it would be possible to, if this person was supposed to legitimately be Maori, we could say like, okay, cool. Well, yeah, we can actually come up with something that is appropriate for that character. But then for things with character creators, it gets really tricky because they're supposed to be individual for everyone. So you can't really just like take one and put it on everyone. That's like a really weird spot where it's like, I don't know if there is a way that could be appropriate. Right. But a lot of people...
Cyberpunk's situation, if they did say like a part body suit or like a sleeve or a half sleeve or something like that, and they reached out to you and said, we want to have your culture in our game, how do we go about it? Like, would there be a process for you where you would think that, sure, I can make like a half sleeve that is of my culture that you could put in your game? Is that something that you would be able to do?
Like, if it was something that wasn't like, like actual like facial or anything like that, if it was something like, like arms or like, back or anything like that, we could totally do something. Like, there are ways, like we could design something that would be appropriate and would also be something that is thematically good for the game and all this kind of stuff. But it's like,
and it doesn't have kind of these exactly. Tribes and like all that sort of stuff in it.
It doesn't speak to a specific ancestry.
So I think that's the thing, because I look at this and I'm like, that's cool, because your culture's in the game. You know,
Yeah,
from
yeah,
a
exactly.
from
Yeah.
a very outside perspective
Yeah.
of not really knowing how any
And a
of
lot
it
of
comes
the comments
together.
that I've got, like, because
Yeah.
I've got like heaps and heaps of angry comments. I've got like
Oh, I can
death
imagine.
threats. I've got like dudes just sending me pictures of their
Oh,
dick and all
we
kinds of stuff.
we
And it's
we
like,
got a lot of that
That's
with
wild, isn't it?
the H1
Yeah.
community sent
Oh,
us
yeah.
some horrible messages.
Yeah, it's
It
wild.
was
It's
funny
like,
because at the time Jack was balls deep in H1 as well.
oh,
Yeah.
really? Yeah.
It was
It's
like
wild
my
because I
game.
feel like
And then I was
if
like,
they,
bruh, let's just relax a second,
I
everybody.
just feel like if this thing was never, like, if this screenshot never leaked and nobody ever saw that that was an option and it was never in the game, it wouldn't, like, these people, it wouldn't have affected them one single bit. But the fact that it is there and the possibility that it might get taken away is like really huge and really important for them, which I find kind of bizarre because it's like if you never knew about it and it wasn't there,
Would have
you
affected
would
you.
never fuck, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this comes back to what we said right at the start of the show, is we're not trying to take, or nobody's trying to take the game away from you.
yeah,
No.
Nobody's saying don't enjoy the game because,
yeah,
like I said, I think the game is going to be a dope game from what I've seen of it. It looks amazing. It looks stunning. It looks like a masterpiece in game making. But it's just elements that they've got wrong. I think they've
Yeah, yeah.
slighted the Maori community, they've slighted the trans community, and even people who
epileptics. Yeah,
epileptics. Like
that one is
these
wild
are
for
all,
me. Like that is
but these are
very
all conscious decisions that have been made, right? And
yeah,
they're
yeah,
conscious decisions that they could have easily, as my wife has said in her numerous tweets that she has sent in
Oh
the
yeah.
last 24 hours. But as she said, this stuff isn't hard. You all have Google.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like when I was on Maori TV talking about it, we were talking another activist, Tina Nata, who has been doing this kind of stuff for years,
Yeah.
and like we were just talking about how it's like, how easy would it be for them just to reach out? Like they're a multi-billion-dollar company. They could
And this
just
game wasn't made in 2 years. Like, it's been made
Yeah,
over a
yeah,
7 or
yeah,
8
yeah.
year period, right? So
Like,
they had
it would be
time to go, oh, we want Ta Moko.
Yeah,
Who
it
do we
would be
talk to?
extremely easy for them just because I mean I feel like the thing is that they don't want Ta Moko, they just wanted something kind of edgy looking and they just, Googled
Right.
facial tattoos and they found something. And like they could have put any other kind of chin tattoo in there and it probably would have been sweet. But
Yeah.
the thing is it's like
Could
it's
have just
very
done some
easy to
geometric
find
stuff, some
people
pattern stuff, like
yeah.
that
Like any kind of weird like
will
whatever.
give the same vibe, right? The same,
Yeah.
not
Like they
same
would have
look or
got what
anything,
they
but
wanted out of it.
yeah,
Would have
they
been
would have
fine.
got a chin tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I find it like really kind of wild that like they that they I don't know that they chose to DMCA that picture without engaging sort of thing because it would be incredibly easy for them to be like, okay, cool, we've just replaced it with another design. Sorry
Yeah.
about that or whatever.
Well,
Like
it
they
would have
could
been
patch it and it'd be fine.
literally, it would have been as simple as like before they'd gone live, let's just pull it out.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like I know they've probably got a million things on their plate with all
Oh,
the other
totally.
stuff that's coming out, especially with like the epilepsy stuff that's like really huge. And I feel like they're probably a bit swamped, and it might be like one of those things that if we do hear from them, it might be a little while down the track where they just quietly put out a tweet or something. They'd be like, oh, actually, some users mentioned this was an unintentional slight, and we have changed it, so we've just replaced that with a similar kind of design that isn't offensive or whatever like that, which is like fine. Like that would have been, if they had done that when we had started talking about it, that would have been an actual like a really good response or whatever. But it's kind of at the point now where it's like it's out, you can't really suppress the pictures anymore, and a lot more people are starting to talk about it. Like I've had like people from like all kinds of like all like Vice Gaming and like Polygon and all that kind of stuff all messaging me about it, and it's kind of like like it's a thing now, whether you want it to be or not. It's a thing, and at some point you're gonna probably have to say something about it. Yeah.
So I think my last thing is I just want to say on the matter is, like I said, representation is super important. I remember back in the day playing Street Fighter back with my boys and them being like, oh, how cool would it be to have a Māori character,
Yeah, totally.
Kiwi-based character in Street Fighter and all this
Yeah.
sort of thing. And years later, those same people being stoked that they put a New Zealand-based level in the game
Yeah.
and it didn't reference Māori at all.
Yeah,
But straight away, as a Kiwi, we all saw that level and went, "That's New Zealand."
But it's like, I mean, it's like the same as like seeing
was
like Temuera Morrison in the Mandalorian. You know, it's
Totally,
like
and
that's the
he
guy.
was
That's the
bringing
guy.
out his kapahaka skills on that episode too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He's really well trained in
Yeah.
Modako, and he was like busting out some moves. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
you know, it's like that.
the only thing that was missing was there was no space pukana.
Oh yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Well, like he
But
didn't.
still, we still got episodes to go, so we
Yeah. He might, you know, give give Mando a little hongy on the way out or something like that. But, no, yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, representation doesn't matter if the people that you're representing and don't feel good about it. And that,
Yeah.
like, I think that's the key with a lot of the problems that they've had with their issues with their representation of trans people in the game as well, where it's like, they put in this like pretty gross, like sexualized kind of thing where it's like really like over the top kind of like just, I mean, it's like, like obviously like trans people have a really rough time with being kind of fetishized and like seen purely as like sexual objects or whatever. So when that came out, a lot of them were like, hey, we're not really happy with this. And a lot of people were like, well, it's representation. You should just be happy that you're in there. And it's kind of like, man, like why do you have to be happy with just getting mentioned or whatever? Like, can't you be like, like if you're gonna bring in any community,
what's the point of being brought to the table if you're not allowed to talk?
yeah. And it's just like, it's not even being brought to the table. It's like you get to like,
like someone saying we hate X, you being X, and you're like, oh, thanks for mentioning me, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. But like, I mean, it's like the deal.
It's like you have to skip past the first bit to just looking at you're in there.
The poster of the trans woman in the game would be the same as if they had just put like a picture of a Maori dude in there, like doing a pukana, like with like a shrunken head in his hand, and it was like Noble Savage energy drinks or something like that, where it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess we are represented there, but that's like, that's a little like that's that's a kind of shitty depiction based on some kind of cringe stereotypes, and it's like, like so yeah, it's like definitely that kind of thing. But it's like the irony of it all is that cyberpunk as a genre has always been extremely critical of these kind of things, and it's been all about like like these evil mega corporations exploiting people and doing all these things, and like these people that are kind of outsiders to that system taking them on and all this kind of thing. So yeah, the irony of them
it's almost like the game they've built is what's happening in real life. They've just built
exactly like
a game about what's happening
the most
to them.
cyberpunk thing ever by actually becoming the multi-billion-dollar mega corp that is like like profiting off like these kind of like these marginalized communities, and which is why like the whole thing like
it's just like some crazy
it's like this kind of like wild
right?
irony, which I actually like find hilarious. I was like posting about it on Twitter, where it's like when I got the DMCA request, where it's like it's so funny. I was like, man, this is the most cyberpunk thing they could have done. And it's like, is this an ARG? Is this like viral marketing? Are they cosplaying as an IRL evil corporation? Like, this is them like laughing. But
got some like team that's like, what can we do to really
really
appropriate like, as many people, and all the negative things we'll just remove them, but keep the positive things up, even if it's the same.
If they had
really push our game,
that was like a fake one that had like some evil corporation logo from the game or something like that, I'd be like, actually respect, like
that was clever.
But it's actually real, so fuck you.
But no, it's a real one.
God.
So it's like they're not pretending, they literally have just become
Definitely not.
But so I'm interested to see what the actual narrative of the game is and what the kind of the themes are surrounding that kind of stuff. Because well, like what a lot of people have said specifically around the trans stuff is that they were saying that it is supposed to be this hypersexualized image because that is the world that they live in, where it's like it's kind of like the game is creating satire by kind of like being like, haha, in our world, like like this community is really sexualized, like even more so than, you know, in real life or whatever. But then it's kind of like, you know, the whole thing about like, if there isn't a real clarity of purpose in satire, then it's functionally the same as the thing that it is satirizing, you know. And it's kind of like, well, you know, like if it's not immediately obvious that this is satire, you're kind of just doing the thing that you're trying to make fun of, you know. So it's like,
Yeah.
like so it's like, by you know, like a miscalculated, or like, I don't know, like, it's not up to me to say whether it was just naive or whether it was malicious or not, but they have kind of become the thing that they were mocking.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we don't have time to talk about anything else that we're going to talk about. But in saying that, I think we all came into this episode knowing that this was going to be the case this week. I think we'll finish off with what are we all looking forward to in the coming week? What do we got coming up?
Cyberpunk.
Pirating
Look,
Cyberpunk.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm
gonna play it.
What else? There's I might give it a little while. I've heard that it's like pretty glitchy at the moment and stuff. So I'll wait and I'll see. I'll keep checking my DMs for that CD Projekt Red.
Hey, sorry, dude.
Pay me permission.
We've removed it, and here's a code.
No. Like, honestly, the thing with this kind of stuff is a lot of people think that they can just pay a cultural consultant, and that will be like, okay, it's fine, but you know, if you pay me, I will still say it sucks. But you can pay me to tell you it sucks. So I'm looking forward to possibly getting an email from CD Projekt Red so they can pay me to tell them they suck. But aside from that, I don't know. Christmas is coming up, a little bit of time off.
Well, I was just about to say, my thing I'm looking forward to this week is my son, who I haven't seen for almost a year, is going to be here on Sunday. Now that the borders are open, we missed out on his 18th birthday.
Oh yeah, of course. Wow.
We haven't been able to see him. We weren't able to travel to New Zealand at all, but he's going to be here on Sunday. So that's literally the only thing I'm looking forward to this week is seeing my son.
That's awesome. Real, go get him some Ta Moko.
Hey, well, I was just about to say, whereabouts are you based in New Zealand? Because
I'm in Auckland. I'm up in Newmarket.
Now I'll have to have a chat to you because we promised our son that he wasn't allowed to get any tattoos until he got his Ta Moko first.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah.
Right,
cool.
And we said we would pay for that when he turned 18.
Yeah. Message me about it because we could probably sort something out, or I can even if there is like, depending what like iwi and stuff like that, I might know someone that'll be like the person for the job or whatever. So but totally, that's let me know. And,
we'll connect offline later on that one. But
Hell yeah.
What about you, Jack? You just Cyberpunk, is it?
Probably more GTA. I'll have a look at Cyberpunk tonight and see how it goes, because it's one of those things. It's like I've been so hyped about it, and then there's so many like issues with it, and it's like, is there like a compromise? Can I really want to play it, but I also really understand that it's.
And I think like the compromise, and also the most Cyberpunk thing you can do is to download it without paying for it, and there you go.
Well, I got given a code, so I didn't pay for it. Is that fine?
Okay, it's not very punk.
Is email Cyberpunk? Maybe, I don't know.
It's cyber.
It is cyber. All right, there's my compromise.
All right. So Tim, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you,
this
bro.
week.
Thanks. It's been great.
Your insight into this has been super interesting,
awesome.
And really appreciate it. And hopefully, some people learn from what you had to say. Where can people find you online? And this is your chance to pimp your tattoos, your YouTube, everything.
Well, I mean, the easiest place to find me is probably on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Dread Conquest. I have a YouTube channel called Conquest of Dread, which is where I talk about stuff like the kind of stuff that we've been talking about here. Or if you jump on Instagram, I'm on there as well as Timothy's Tattoos. But I don't really, the stuff that I post on there is more like more like traditional and that kind of tattoos and stuff like that. So but you can check me out on there. Otherwise you could check me out when you guys invite me back.
We would love to have you.
Do it.
Look, I just gave you the follow on Instagram as well.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Hell yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, it's been great to be here. It's been great to have a chat to you guys, and I guess I'll see you around.
Yeah, well, and to everybody else, if you want to make sure you follow Tim, you can also follow Jack and myself as well. I'm at FidMcAwesome on everything. Jack is at Jack Hutto on everything. And of course, if you want to follow GotoGame, at GoToGame on Twitter, at goto.game on Instagram. You can find everything else on our website, www.goto.game. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, we do this every week. Make sure you hit subscribe and share it with your friends. And we'll be back next week with another one of our mates talking about gaming and everything. So
Yep.
make sure you tune in.
Wait. Cheers, Tim.
See you guys.
Bloody legend.